What's going on, everybody? Actor Ishikawa here, and today we're doing something a little different. This is something that I've never done before on this channel, or anywhere actually. Today we're going to be making a tier list, so we're ranking all of the tracks from the new Mario Kart Wii CTGP update from this past weekend, and we're going to put them all into a tier list. So if you guys want to check out the tier list immediately, because I'll be talking for a couple of minutes, I'll leave a timestamp in the description, and I'll also leave a time on the screen right now. So yeah, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for the support of the last video. It's been insane how popular it's been. It's my most viewed video on my channel. We've got more subscribers from it. We've got a couple more followers on Twitch from it. So yeah, it's been really cool, the amount of support that I've got from this video. And hopefully it keeps climbing. You know, I think right now we're at 250 views for that video. So hopefully the number keeps climbing. But again, thank you guys so much for all the support on that video. So here is the tier list itself. So the categories from worst to best, we've got the game over tier, the unsatisfactory tier, the average tier, the very good tier, and the funky tier. So the funky tier represents the best of the best, while game over represents the ones that I haven't had as much fun with. Not necessarily the worst of the worst, but just the tracks that I feel are like kind of buggy and glitchy and aren't as much fun, whereas the funky tier are pretty much near flawless, near perfect, just a lot of fun to play. So in terms of ranking the actual tracks and where I put them in those categories, I've set out 3 criteria for what I'm looking for in the tracks. The first thing I'm looking for is difficulty, so essentially how hard the track is and which audience it appeals to more. So either casual, more experienced or hardcore, or a mixture of both. I would prefer it if it was a mixture of both, so it doesn't alienate one or the other. But yeah, that's what I'm mainly looking for in terms of difficulty. The second thing I'm looking for in the tracks are visuals, so how nice the track looks visually, but not necessarily just in terms of graphic and how pretty it looks. More just like the little things as well that make a track special and pop out more. So for example, objects moving in the background, stuff like that. So things that make the environment pop out more, and if the track looks pretty and beautiful, then that's a bonus point for me. And the final thing I'm looking for is the map layout, so the actual layout of the track. So for example, if there are really smooth turns and not sharp turns, that's great. If there are shortcuts that are actually shortcuts, that's perfect. But if there's a track with too many sharp turns for like any vehicle, or if there are shortcuts that aren't actually shortcuts, aka different routes that the game makes you think is a shortcut, but you actually lose time from it or you don't get any time at all, they're bad points for me. So yeah, basically, if the map layout is good, it's not too difficult, it doesn't feel too unfair, then that's great. The other thing that I'm looking for in a track is the authenticity of where it comes from. So if this is only for retro tracks or tracks that have come from another game, basically how well it takes from the source material. If the custom track looks and feels as good as the original, then that's brilliant. If it doesn't look or feel the same as the original, then that's bad, because what's the point of making a custom track based off another track if it doesn't look at all similar? So those are the main criteria that I'm looking for. The other thing that I wanted to say just before we start the video is that these opinions are all my own. You guys will have different opinions than me. You guys will rank these tracks differently than me. I completely understand that. And the other thing is that this isn't an attack on the people who made the tracks. This isn't a critique of them. This is just a critique of the custom tracks themselves. Obviously, the people who made the custom tracks are very talented people. I'm a game designer and I don't know where to start with making a custom track, so I have an immense amount of respect for those individuals, all the group of people who make these custom tracks. So again, this isn't a critique of the people who made them, this is just a critique of the tracks and my experiences of those tracks. So with that being said, let's get straight into the tier list. So the first custom track we'll be reviewing is Cherry Blossom Garden by Renegade Ciara and Chaos Shadow 23. This track immediately stands out to me visually, not just because of the cherry blossom petals falling in the foreground and the background, but also the really bright purple night sky, the bright pink cherry blossom trees in the background, the rushing water when you go over that section, over the bridge. It's so beautiful. Like the vine tunnels as well, the fountain at the end, which I'll get into in a second. it's just such a visually pretty track that, like, I can't really say anything else about it. It's so beautiful. Difficulty-wise, I think this would appeal to casual and experienced players, because there aren't any, like, sharp turns in this track, which is perfect. And, I think that there's enough here, like, enough shortcuts here for the experienced players to be happy as well. I'll get into them in a second. But I think the, like, casuals will enjoy this, and experienced players will also enjoy it as well, so it fits that perfect balance. And in terms of map layout, again, no sharp corners at all. It feels really easy to drive. It's pretty much perfect in terms of map layout. Now, in terms of shortcuts, some really cool things I found is that, like here, you can get up on the railing, which I found out pretty much near immediately. But I've never really seen that done on a custom track before, so that's pretty cool, or at least as frequently. If you use a mushroom here at the fountain, you can boost over to take a little shortcut and cut off a whole, like, little U-turn. There are some sections where you can cut off the grass using, like, mushrooms. You'll need usually 2 mushrooms to get past this. My one main issue with this track, however, is you could potentially get stuck on the fountain shortcut, because if you land on the second or bottom roads, it's either really hard to get back on the track or near impossible to get back on the track. So I think if they made those sections out of bounds, then this would be a funky tier for me. But unfortunately, because of this, I have to put it in the very good tier, which is still not bad. I think this is a really fun track, and I think casuals and experienced players alike can have fun with it. So the next track is Color Circuit by Okien and Reno Rocks. Immediately, the visuals stand out to me with its cel-shaded style. It's really, really cool. It's really, really beautiful. It feels like Color Wonderland, but just better and more beautiful. Like, I haven't seen this art style in any other CTGP track, which is really cool. In terms of difficulty, I think this achieves the perfect balance, because there are shortcuts in this, which I think casuals and experienced players won't find too difficult. It's really simple track, the map layout is really nice, there's no really sharp turns, there's plenty of smooth turns in this track, and the shortcuts don't feel too hard as well. Like, I think casual and experienced players will pretty much have, you know, they'll have an easy time with a lot of the shortcuts. The other thing is there's a glitch in this where you can skip half the track. I think that's really cool, even if it's unintentional. And because of just how beautiful it looks and how well the track actually drives, I'm going to be putting this in the funky tier. This is a very cool track. I love it. It's one of my new personal favorite tracks in CTGP. And yeah, this track is just visually stunning. I love it. So next up we have Final Grounds by Mega Kart 69. If I had to compare the visuals of Final Grounds to, say, Cherry Blossom Garden and Color Circuit, this isn't as pretty, but I think the actual, like, look of the track is still pretty cool. Like, it's set in a castle. It's like a final boss castle. Like, it reminds me of that. But, like, yeah, I think that in terms of map layout as well, I think there are some sharp turns in this. Like, some of the turns in this used to be a lot harder, like in the old Final Grounds. I think the update did kind of fix that. Like at the very end, for example, there's not a really kind of awkward turn at the very end. It goes straight down in a straight line to the finish, which I think is a good fix. But other than that, I think there are still some sharp turns on this track which could maybe throw some people off. Some of them throw me off. But, yeah, it's because they don't throw me off anymore because I've played this track so much, but I think for casual players, this would definitely throw people off. I think this is a track for more experienced players. I've kind of merged all the categories into one kind of lump. But, yeah, this is more for experienced Mario Kart Wii players instead of casual players. So it's more shifted to the other end of the scale instead of completely balanced. But it's still fine. So I think there's still some parts of the track where, like, casuals will be able to kind of get used to, because the signposting on this track is actually quite good. Like, the arrows clearly tell you where to go. Like, I don't think you'll really struggle with where to go, apart from maybe a couple of sections. But other than that, I think it's actually fine. And the shortcuts are pretty cool as well. There's a few sections where I think that, like, the shortcuts are actually pretty good. None of the shortcuts, I think, lose you any time. There are some routes which will lose you time. Like, definitely for the beginning bit, the right path is definitely faster than the left path. The center path, after you go through the Lost Fortress section, that's definitely a lot faster. There's a little shortcut off to the side which is new, where if you use 2 mushrooms, you can take a ramp. I don't think that gains you any time, though. I think that might actually lose you time. And then obviously there's a really hard shortcut at the very end, which I don't think I've got it in this video, but I have made it only once, and I don't think that was when I was recording. But it's a very, very hard shortcut to make, but you do need to tilt down in order to make that shortcut. But yeah, overall I would give this one an average. I'd put this in the average tier, because it's not the best track, but it's not the worst track. There are some things about this track that I like, and then there are other things about this track that I don't like. So average I think is the highest tier that I can place this map. So up next is Honeybee Hideout by Taco Josh. Immediately the visuals stand out to me. It just looks so pretty, it's so vibrant, the colours are really bright. It's basically Maple Treeway, but there's more going on, essentially. This track I thought was originally based off Super Mario Galaxy, the Honey Hive Galaxy, but it's actually based off of a level from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, I believe, which I think is really cool. So yeah, visual-wise, it's stunning. Difficulty-wise, I think casual and experienced players will have fun with this. There aren't any sharp turns at all, which again kind of brings in map layout, and the signposting in this is really good as well. Like, I don't think anybody will get lost, which is why I think casual players will enjoy this one. And I think experienced players, there are some shortcuts in this that I think they'll have fun with. What I think about this track is that there are some shortcuts where you can kind of develop them. It's like in stages. So for casual players, they might they'll take one jump, but then for experienced players, they'll find another jump in there to speed up their run. So yeah, I think it's a really, really cool track. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's pretty, it's simple. I love it. My one potential criticism is when, at the very beginning, here, there's this ramp that you can go up, but I thought it lost you time, which maybe would have put it down to very good. But actually, it's pretty simple. Yeah, I think it's just about the same time, so I'll let it slide. So yeah, I'm putting this track in the funky tier. It's pretty much perfect. There's nothing else I can say about it. Next up is Sahara Hideout by ZPL Gaming, IEF Spyro, and Golden RS. When you first look at this track, just in terms of the map layout, it looks really complicated. But actually, as you drive around, you actually realize that the turns aren't actually that hard to take. It's actually quite a good map layout. There are some turns, like, there are some blind turns where you can't actually see where you're going, but it only happens, like, once, so I'll let it slide. But, like, I think that the overall map layout is pretty much fine. There's no really, like, sharp turns in this, which is what I'm looking for. In terms of difficulty, I actually think this kind of meets the balance, but not really. I'll explain in a second. Because I think casual players would be fine with this track, but I think they would struggle with some of the turns. But the experienced players would love this track, because not only are the experienced players used to these kind of turns, but there are also some shortcuts on this track that are actually really cool and actually quite difficult to get to. And then, yeah, that's difficulty and the map layout. I think visuals-wise, it actually looks pretty nice, but like it's not nearly as good looking as, say, Color Circuit or Honeybee Hideout. But I think it still is quite cool in its own way. And there are little things as well which make it pop out more. And it just like, those little things that make it pop out more are actually things that affect the track. So for example, the coloured bits of road are actually trickable. So you can trick on them and get like more boosts and stuff, which is really cool. In terms of like other shortcuts you can do, there are some little corner cuts you can do, like for example with the big swamp, or on the inside part with the sand. And there's a really cool hidden shortcut where once you're out of the pyramid and about to go to the upward section, there's a little gap. You'll see it here in a second. There's a little corridor where if you boost and land at just the right time, you can go into that little tunnel and then pop out to the side and onto the upward section. It's really cool. There are loads of branching paths as well. It's a really cool track. So I'm going to put this at the very good tier, because there's a lot more to this track than I thought there would be, and I was really, really impressed with some of the shortcuts we've got to do. 5 down, and 3 to go. So up next is SNES Donut Plains 3, based off Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, by Bear and ZPL Gaming. Immediately, visuals-wise, this looked really impressive, and in terms of the authenticity of the track, it's basically taken exactly from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It looks exactly the same as it did. Difficulty-wise, I think this fits a perfect balance. The only thing for me that would put it down from the funky tier is that it doesn't look, to me, it doesn't look as visually impressive as, say, Color Circuit or Honeybee Hideout. I don't know, there's just something about this track that makes it doesn't look as impressive as the other ones. Maybe because I've seen it too many times before, but I don't know. I think it's just a me thing. But yeah, overall, like, the track is still really, really good. Like, the shortcuts are cool. It's basically exactly the same as it was in Mario Kart Deluxe. So yeah, I'm going to put this at the very good tier. It's still a very, very good track, but just not as good as Color Circuit or Honeybee Hideout. So next up is Suzuka Circuit by IGMB. This one, in terms of map layout, is very, very long, but like, it's a mixed here for me, because there are some really, really smooth turns in this, then there are other turns in this track which are very, very, very sharp, and like, even with the Mark bike, which has the best, you know, has the best turning in the game, I can't make these corners. I have to either go really, really wide to take them, or I just have to go into the grass. It's literally so hard to make some of those corners. It's a bit basic in terms of visuals, I think. I think I don't know, it's a really, really hard one for me, because there are some moving parts, like moving signs, and the crowd bops up and down, and I think the Ferris wheel in the background moves very slightly. But other than that, it's just a bit of a boring track in terms of visuals. Like, there's not much going on. The one thing I will say, though, is that this is based off of a real-life track in Japan, and it's also from Gran Turismo 6. I've never played Gran Turismo 6, but I looked at the original map layout for Suzuka Circuit, and it looks basically the same. I think in terms of difficulty, I think this leans more towards casual, I think. I think experienced players won't have a lot of fun with this. But, like, the main problem with this track is that, apart from the fact that it's just a boring track, but, like, it's just, there's nothing going on. And it feels too long. That's the thing. It just feels way too long. The track, I think, only takes you about maybe 3.5 minutes to do, but it feels way longer. Like, it feels just way too long. It's a bit too boring. I mean, you can do some corner cuts with mushrooms, and there's one cut at the end where you basically just go inside into a pit stop, which is cool, but it's just, it doesn't do much, I think, in terms of a shortcut. It's just another straightaway, which just so happens to be at the side of the track. So for me, this was just a bit of a boring track. So I'm going to put this in unsatisfactory. It's not the worst of the worst, but for me, this was just a bit too boring for my tastes. So the final track we're looking at is Luigis Motocross by WiiMaster 35000 VR. This track, I think, looks really cool in terms of visuals. Like, it definitely fits the theme of a motocross stage. It does remind me of Waluigi Stadium from Double Dash and Wario Stadium from Mario Kart DS, just because I think of the visuals. In terms of the map layout, I think it's pretty much cool. Like, I think it has all the turns which are smooth, and there aren't really many sharp turns at all, if any at all. And in terms of difficulty, I think that casuals and experienced players will definitely find a lot to like about this one. The casual players, I think, will find that the turns are pretty much friendly, and I think the signposting in this is pretty good, like, you'll never get lost. While the experienced players will find plenty of shortcuts to take and to use during races. Obviously, it doesn't look as nice as, say, Color Circuit or Honeybee Hideout, but I think the shortcuts in this are definitely kind of putting it over the top in terms of what they actually achieve. My one downside with this, I'll get to it in a second, but the one thing I did want to mention quickly was how at the very end of the track, you can see a Mario Kart, or Super Mario Odyssey, sorry, a Super Mario Odyssey Power Moon, which I think is a really neat addition, although you will have to stop to try and find it. My one issue is with the shortcut on the side, where essentially, if you take the big boost ramp around the side, you can take the shortcut, and it's a really cool shortcut, but it saves no time. It actually loses you time. I think it lost me about 4 or 5 seconds during a race. So, that put it down for me. But then there was another cut, which, if you take the right route instead, there's an elevated path which is much, much faster. So that balances it out for me. So because of that, and because of the amount of pros and cons with this track, I'm going to put this in the average tier. Because there's a lot I like about this track, but there's a lot I dislike about the track. Like the pokey pathings, and the shortcut that doesn't do anything. But yeah, other than that, I think it's a really fun track that I personally have a lot of fun playing. And there you have it. That is all of the tracks in the new CTGP update for October 2019 ranked. I think that this whole ranking system was really fun. It definitely took a lot of time to do, but I think it was worth it in the end. I would definitely do this again at some point, but if you want me to do this again, leave some suggestions in the comments below. I'll gladly take them on. I read everybody's comments, so if there are some good suggestions, I'll pick them up, and I'll see if I can get another tier list done sometime down the line. I won't do these all the time. I'll only bring the tier list out every once in a while, because this takes me a long time to do. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you would have ranked this differently, whether you'd have placed some tracks higher up or lower down. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss any new videos from me. I've been Actor Ishikawa, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.